Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. My name is Zeno Temple. I am the founder and president of the Just Us movement. I'm super excited to have everyone here today. We have some amazing speakers on our, next up on our webinar series. Today's series is Breaking the Silence, Mental Health in the Professional World. We're super excited to have some amazing people with us today. We have Esther Wangi and Dr. Sean Healy. So I'm really excited to have them today. The Just Us movement, it's really been a journey so far. We officially launched in January, and to be here in May having these impactful conversations, it just speaks volumes to the community around us and the people who are contributing to this community. So without further ado, I would love to have each one of our speakers introduce themselves and talk about a little bit of the work that they've done in their background. So I would like to pass it off to Ms. Mwangi.
Thank you again, Zeno, and thank you for all of you who have put this together. I know it takes a lot of work to do this, so I don't take it for granted that you could invite me and invite others on it. So thank you again. I have been working with people, I must say people, probably throughout my life, but much more on a professional level. I've done a lot of work in child protection, which I did a whole career with the State Department of Children and Families. And then after that, I started my own private practice that grew into a group practice. It is in here in Broomfield, Connecticut. We do hold licenses both in Connecticut and in Massachusetts. Most of the work that I'm concentrating on now is with families that are dealing with all kinds of issues concerning divorce and separation, and also adoption. And adoption also comes in when families are blended, but the children might not be birth children to one of the parents, and adoption is taking place, and the stressors that come with that. I also work with the church families. I'm also a pastor here in Windsor. So my work really goes from being a pastor, trying to bring the people of faith to understand that mental health is a thing. Also, it's a thing that do impact people even when they have faith, that they can struggle with their faith and also struggle with their mental health or their emotional health. So that's the work that I'm doing now. Mostly when I work with a lot of women or children, it goes both ways, because when women are struggling, their children are also struggling. Almost the whole family gets impacted. And when a child is also struggling, most likely a parent that is behind that child is also struggling emotionally, because that's what I have observed. So that's in general what I have been doing, and I enjoy it. I feel it's a calling, and I like it, love it. Yeah.
It's good. When you love the work, it doesn't seem like work, right?
Yeah, no, it
And
does.
thank you. And thank you for everything that you do. So I would love to pass it over to Dr. Healy. That's a fitting name.
Yeah, so I'm thrilled to be here. I appreciate the invitation, and thank you all for joining. I am a clinical psychologist, and I work for an organization called Lawyers Concerned for Lawyers of Massachusetts. And so before I did that, I worked at a nonprofit right out of grad school. I served kids through adults with major mental illness in community mental health clinics. After doing that for about 10 years, I moved into private group practice for a very short amount of time, and then I started with Lawyers Concerned for Lawyers about 11 years ago. And so the topic today is mental health in professional settings, and my organization specifically serves the legal community of Massachusetts. It is profession specific, and so we do a variety of things. We focus on the legal community themselves. And so we work with law students, with lawyers, with judges, and with legal professionals in Massachusetts. And so our organization started back in the 70s, the mid 70s. It really started as a volunteer organization of lawyers who were in recovery, trying to help other lawyers get into recovery. And they wanted to have specific recovery meetings just for lawyers to create a safe space for them to talk about the struggles of the profession and addiction without the fear that people in the community think of them differently or less than, that their reputation might be affected by them getting help. And so our organization started as that small group of lawyers helping other lawyers. And then over the years, it expanded into a multidisciplinary organization, a nonprofit. Today, we have recovery services. We still have those meetings of lawyers and law students. We have law practice management assistants. So for a lot of lawyers who want to go into solo practice, there's not a lot of preparation in law school. So as you leave law school and you get licensed and you want to do your own business, basically, there's a lot of training needed to sort of do the business part. And so years ago, they saw a need that there were lawyers who were getting into trouble because they lacked that education or training on like how to run the business part of it, and that led to a variety of issues. And so, Lawyers Concerned for Lawyers started that service as well. And then the third area are clinical services, which I'm a part of. And the clinicians do a whole variety of things, helping law students, lawyers, judges, and legal professionals, prioritize their own mental health. The specific stressors of the legal profession create challenges for people, which I can talk your ear off about. But in addition to those specific stressors, there's often explicit and implicit messages that asking for help is a sign of weakness. And so there's a lot of stigma around asking for help or admitting that you need help or support. There's a big emphasis on how important your reputation is. And if your reputation isn't perfect, then you're going to suffer professionally. And so that leads to a lot of people not addressing their mental health, avoiding asking for help, avoiding, treatment or support. And it just has ripple effects. As Esther was saying, when one person is suffering, it's not just that person, it's the system that they're in, their family, their colleagues. So there's these ripple effects that occur. And so, yeah, I could go on and on and on, but I'll stop there and then return to some of the stuff as we talk more.
I think that was the perfect segue, right? You talk about asking for help and being vulnerable and that type of thing, and the, I guess, the stigma that comes along with the vulnerability and asking for help. So, in both of your professions, I'm sure you've dealt with people from all types of careers and in positions of power. So, how do you approach, building trust with professionals who are used to being in control and used to being on top of or being a boss of their employees and just empowering and control like judges, lawyers, and other high functioning individuals. So how can you give us some ways of building trust? And I guess I'll pass it back off to Esther.
Yeah, what I have seen, I do have a lot of people who come to me and they will look at the profiles that I might have of people that know me. And they will say, well, I came to you because you don't know other people that I know. And that is important for people because what they are looking for in that setting is confidentiality. And they know that whatever they share in that on that platform, whenever they come with whatever they come with, they trust that it will not be heard by anybody else. Because there's nothing as bad as knowing that somebody knows that person who might say whatever it is that you have shared. So that really helps. And emphasizing on confidentiality. And I'm very, very, very strict with that it doesn't matter who calls me or asks me about that person, that they will not hear from me on anything that has been shared. And things happen because sometimes people will say, I see Esther, and somebody will say, oh, so-and-so called me and said they see you. Do you still see them? And I want you to see me. Or they'll bring their name into conversations when they're in therapy. But then I cannot talk about any other client, any other person in that setting. So when people know that you're trustworthy, then that makes them feel comfortable to share what they have to share with you. The other thing also is being vulnerable to them, because we are also people in leadership in different other places, and let them know that even people who are leaders, they also can be having their own personal concerns, and we look for help. I look for therapy when I need it. I need somebody to help me when I need that help. And I think when people hear that, then just make it known that you are also human just like they are. I think trust is built like that.
Yeah, just to build off of what Spencer just said. I think that's spot on in terms of like what I was thinking in terms of my answer. One of the things that I do whenever I meet with someone for the first time is go over confidentiality, the limits to confidentiality, basically like set the stage for what to expect in a conversation with me. So where the boundaries are, where those exceptions are. And for the legal community, I have found that there's a heightened sense of concern around confidentiality. So lawyers know that, oh, with a subpoena or a court order, somebody could get these records, right? So like, is this really confidential? Is this really safe to talk about? And so I always go over confidentiality. I always go over the fact that for our organization, we have a unique rule that the Supreme Judicial Court wrote for our organization, which says that lawyers can talk to us about ethical violations, and it's not reportable to the Board of Bar Overseers. So one of the big concerns that lawyers have is if they talk about making a mistake that is an ethical violation, if they say that to any other lawyer, that other lawyer who hears it is obligated to report them. It's a reporting requirement. And so the fact that we have that sort of extra layer of confidentiality can make, lawyers in particular feel a little more comfortable that it's a safe place to talk about things, that they don't have to worry about like picking and choosing their words. And then in addition to confidentiality, a big thing that I do is I try to sort of give not only validation, so like letting somebody know that I'm understanding what they're describing, what they're going through, but also I find that giving them some information or explaining things like, our response to anxiety, or like why they might feel burnt out given all these things that are going on. Kind of like normalizing their experience is a really effective way to build trust and to build a connection in a relationship, where when somebody is being vulnerable and sharing something and they hear that like, oh yeah, it makes total sense that you would react that way. It makes total sense given these factors, right? It makes total sense based on how, as human beings, we respond to uncertainty or to pressure or to, fear that people's opinion of us is going to change. And so I think I have often seen people sort of come in with hesitation and then start talking like halfway through a meeting. They say like, I almost canceled this appointment because I was afraid it wouldn't be helpful or it wasn't confidential. I almost canceled it. I almost didn't show up, but I'm glad I did. Just sort of like having that human to human conversation, particularly with people who are in positions of power, where it's like, I'm not seeing you as your position, right? You're not a law partner. You're not a judge. You're Bob, you're Fatima, you're a person. And so I think that is a really helpful way to build that trust.
Dr. Healy, I'm going to pick on you just a little bit,
Sure.
and follow up on that and talk about mindsets a little more. So in your book, The Full Weight of the Law, you discuss how the legal profession is unique in the sense of it contributes to depression. So have you found any specific mindset or habit that is really common in the legal profession or legal field that seems to worsen that symptom?
There's a couple surveys, research studies that ask lawyers about their experience of depression. And so repeatedly we get findings that lawyers report rates of depression that are like 3 times what the general population is. So obviously there's something about the profession that is sort of contributing to that experience. And we also see there's some older research that looked at law students, and they found that when law students came into law school, their rates of depression looked like the general population, as you would expect. But then throughout law school, it just like skyrockets. And eventually comes down a little bit, but it's still 3 times the general population. So there's obviously some things that are, unique to practicing law or just stressful professions that can contribute. I think one of the things that often contributes is this inconsistency of messaging. One is like your reputation is paramount and you can't make a mistake. And if you make a mistake, like your career's over. And then the other side is like, oh, you're learning. So obviously you don't know everything. You're gaining experience. So the two things can't be the same. They both can't be true at the same time. So you can't be learning and not know everything and also not make a mistake ever. And so these mixed messages about how a mistake or failure is just like the thing you don't want to ever happen, and it's always bad, as opposed to like that's how we learn most things in life, is through an attempt, a failure, and a retry, right? So like it's practice, it's persistence, it's resilience. That's how we develop. But all of a sudden they get the message like, oh yeah, you got to stop that, and you got to be right all the time, and like not make any mistakes, and like protect your reputation at all costs. And so I think that inconsistency plays a big part in people's, sense of themselves, their self-esteem, sort of how they manage that stress, because they're constantly, aware that they are making mistakes because they're humans and they're learning. And it doesn't matter how many years of practice you have, like that's still the case. But then on the other hand, it's like, oh, I can't make a mistake. But it's almost like saying you can't be human while you're being human. That, among other things, contributes a lot.
See, that answer kind of, in my mind, triggers a lot of parallels between the work that Ms. Mwangi does on the other side when you talk about faith-based work and the idea of can't making a mistake and being perfect in no sense of your internalized feelings about what you're doing in yourself. So in your work, you incorporate faith-based work into practice in the therapy. How do you approach this spiritual integration in ways that support rather than, just bypass the psychological work, especially for those dealing with trauma and depression and things like that?
I first think about myself as a person. I'm a woman of faith. And if I were to go to a therapist who will, first of all, deny that faith has any positive aspects of it to help me as a person, they will not reach me. I'll not be able to listen to them, because the whole thing about me, that is like in the center of who Esther is. And if that is not regarded by somebody that is treating me or is working with me, they will not be able to help Esther, because they'll hear me say, God is going to help me. So if they say that, if they don't validate my position in that, then I will not listen to anything else they are going to tell me, because I believe I can incorporate my whatever I can be given with prayer and faith. And I don't have to divorce one from the other for me. I need both to be able to survive. I need the faith to trust that God is also going to help me do that which I have been told to do. And if I put the two of them together, they are therapeutic to me as a person. So when I go to a person of faith who will tell me, this child does not need to be on this medication because we are going to trust God for this child, and that's it. And I know that if they are put on whatever medication, I don't prescribe medication, but I have seen that when a child is helped, or an individual, it could be even an adult, that medications can also help them with whatever it is that they are dealing with. And faith also will help, because that is what will stabilize other aspects of their life. Then I can say to them, you can do both. You don't have to say you are not going to do, you are going to take one and leave the other, because both of them are going to help you. And I have seen it where people will say, well, sometimes people are dealing with something like schizophrenia, something that needs some medication or whatever it could be. And somebody will say, no, I don't need that because God has touched me and I'm healed. I don't need to be on medication. Yet I say to them, okay, stay on medication. Just like if I had diabetes today, you will not tell me to quit taking my whatever they do for diabetes and just trust God alone. You are going to help me as my sister in faith to continue taking my medication so I can be well. People understand it when it's broken down for them like that, and just make it look for other aspects of life. Because when if you broke your leg, even as a Christian, you go to have whatever they do, they put that boot on you or whatever, and you feel much better. You'll not just sleep at home in pain. And that is the same thing. Our brains also, sometimes we need something to support that, our brain life. And people understand that, and they are able to see that both of them can happen. The other thing I do for every seminar, I usually have conferences in October, and I bring a lot of people to come and talk on different aspects, and I never leave out mental health, because it's very important, and especially much more to the families that of faith who think that they don't need it.
Well, a lot of what I heard though was meeting people where they're at and having those conversations, the open and honest conversations, right? And no matter what your belief is and where you're coming from in it, having someone there to like bounce the idea off of, or figure out where you're at in the process is important. I'm going to open this next question up to both of you, and whoever wants to take it first can do so. But what structural or cultural barriers have you seen that discourage professionals from seeking out mental health? And what can be some realistic steps for both the institution and also the employee or the person or the student in this situation to kind of lower those barriers and take over those barriers?
I'm happy to jump in first, if you don't mind, Esther. So the first thing that comes to mind is like when I'm talking with a new attorney, a young associate who might be a woman of color, and it's clear that like when she is in an environment of like mostly white males, she's going to feel a different pressure than a white male associate from the same firm who might come and talk to me. So understanding those differences, those pressures, the expectations that she might have for herself or that she feels from other people, that like if you are representing your group in some way, like you're the only one in the environment, you're going to feel, most likely you're going to feel more pressure to sort of, not make a mistake, not be vulnerable, not ask for help. Like all those things are just amplified. I see that a lot. I see a lot of barriers where within an organization or a firm, maybe there's a partner who has power in that system, might be encouraging people to have good boundaries, to like prioritize their sleep, to take care of themselves. But the associate who doesn't have power feels like, well, it's okay for you to do that because you have the power in the system to make those decisions. I don't feel like I have the power yet, and I can't just do the same thing. And so it's one thing to hear that message from someone who has power in the system, and that's better than not hearing it, but it's also not the same as that associate feeling that they have the ability or the freedom to do that. And so one way to sort of address those different cultural issues or barriers is to be thinking about options. It's like what would be comfortable. So going back to what Esther said, and what you said is meeting somebody where they are, and like recognizing like these barriers are real, these pressures are real. And so given where you are, what would be a comfortable first step? Right? What would work for you that might be different than what would work for somebody else with more power in the situation or didn't have that same level of pressure or expectations? And so I think just meeting people where they are, having those real conversations about, what's going to work for you and your values and your priorities in your particular situation, and not sort of prescribing some grandiose plan like you should just do this, like, let me just solve that problem for you, because that's a really effective way to get tuned out, is when you're basically dictating what somebody should do without demonstrating that you understand the context in which they live or work or all the different pressures that they're under.
Thank you. Thank you for Dr. Harry. One of the other things I have seen is, and especially when you are working with people and families of color, is the belief that Black people, we don't look for that. That is not for us. Therapy, no, you don't do that. No, we keep it at home. We help each other, but it's not being done at home. That is the fear, and that is the problem, because we tire our loved ones with our stories that they don't want to hear that time. And when we go there that time, they are tired. They don't want to listen to us, or they'll silence us because they don't have the tools and the skills that are needed. So what they will say is that you are okay. You can't just be crying about this. You are fine now. Move on, girl. Just do what you have to do. You cannot say these things. It doesn't happen like that. And all those are cultural things. The other thing also, for people to understand that mental health is something that really happens. Our brains sometimes have impacted. Sometimes people will just think everything is the devil, or they will actually say you are bewitched. All this stuff that is happening to you is somebody did something. So it has nothing to do with you. Is your uncle who did something in another culture or in another setting. That's why you are dealing with this. So all those cultural aspects can really hinder people. They can be barriers from, and they feel like, okay, I cannot, there's really nothing that can be done. I worked with a woman who was telling me the other day that their father, they were practicing, there was a lot of voodoo that was going on in the family. And dad was doing some things there. And anything that has been happening with these people in the whole family, they think is voodoo that is going on. And some of the things, really, when you look at it, is somebody's dealing with anxiety, but it's as other things that are making it come because of so many other beliefs that now that auntie is now in town. What will happen to my family? All those things are happening here where we live, and people sometimes are unable to look for help because they don't feel like somebody can understand that aspect. Because now it brings forth coming to talk about bringing and washing our dirty laundry in front of people who do not understand these aspects, that this could be something, that could be going on.
Thank you for that answer. I mean, you deal with a lot of deeply personal situations overall, right? And I think this transitions into the next question. You deal with a lot of deeply personal situations and especially like losses. So when you deal with professionals who are going into work or going into their field or whatever they're doing in their professional life, but at home they have things going on, childlessness and loss and miscarriages and things like that. What parallels do you see between those experiences and the silent grief that professionals carry out in their day-to-day lives, like ambition or burnout and things like that? How do you, help those people get through those hard moments and continue with their careers?
So there's lots of things that could be helpful. Obviously, it's every situation is different, but I think one of the themes that I see a lot is people compartmentalizing their lives. So like they try to sort of keep work stuff at work. They try to keep home stuff at home, and to a certain extent that's necessary to be able to, like, I need to focus on what I'm doing at work, even though there's some stressors at home. Right? Like I have a sick family member, but right now I need to be focused on serving my client. There's a level of that is helpful. Having too much of that, not helpful. Not enough of that, not helpful. So I often talk about a variety of topics as being on the continuum and looking for that Goldilocks zone. And so when professionals compartmentalize too much, what they often do is they assume that one area of their life is not going to affect the other, because it's like, well, that's compartmentalized. That's in a different box or a different category. The clients that a lawyer is working with who might be traumatized, immigration attorneys who are working with their clients who are seeking asylum or dealing with immigration issues, attorneys who are representing families of victims of domestic abuse, people who are hearing stories over and over and over again of trauma. Oftentimes, at least for lawyers, they're not trained on how that's going to affect them. They're trained on like the nuts and bolts of practicing law, representing a client. They're not actually trained on how to deal with the emotional aspect of that. Helping clients realize that all the different areas of their lives, they do impact the other areas of their lives. That's okay. That's being human. And therefore, it's important to be able to recognize the impact and make sure that you're getting supports and addressing them across those different areas. I'm realizing that I did not plug my computer in, so I need to plug it in. So I want to duck out of the screen real quick and pass it to Esther. So don't even think that I'm missing at all.
That's right. Okay. Yeah, it is true. When we look at the whole person and understand that that person who is an attorney, that person who is a teacher, that person who is a mother, has all these other things going on in their lives. And the same way your client is coming with their own situations, you also have your own. And when that touches part of your life, it can tell you what part of your life is not healed as a person. Say, for instance, if I'm working with somebody and they are talking about, there are some areas that I'm comfortable with, Okay, say a woman comes or a person comes, a family comes because they have lost a child to miscarriage. And I know that that person, even after they have left my office, the other person, the other people in the community, are going to assume that that person, because they have gone back to work, they are okay. Just to let them know that that person is not okay. That person is still struggling. And especially they are struggling in an area that is so invisible to the other people, because the other people assume, okay, the baby is not here, so she's young, she can have another baby. So that is the assumption. So those things can be very impactful. So if they come to me or they come with another story that is really impacting me, and I feel like, okay, this is too heavy for me, that is where I or another person who is a professional like you as an attorney, if a story is given to you and it's also triggering you, you have all kinds of trauma that is coming from that vicarious trauma that is coming from other people telling you their stories. That's why you need to have somebody that you can be talking with for yourself to make sure that you are not carrying all that weight on you and bringing it to your own family, or bringing to other people in your life, because it happens. What I have done, I'll give an example of what I have done. I have a family. I'm a mother. We have 3 adult children, and I have a husband. I cannot use my husband as my therapist because he can go bad quickly. He's also a therapist, but I cannot use him as such, because now when we come to this home, I'm actually talking from my home office. When we come here, I'm a wife and a mother. But when I go to the office, I'm a therapist. I have to be able to tear myself from that and get my help somewhere else to fix that part of me that needs some help, some emotional strength, because it cannot be solved in this house all the time. Otherwise, I'll mess up everybody here. So it's the same thing also for an attorney that is dealing with a lot of weight, that you cannot bring all that to your family or the people that you care for. You look for other avenues that can also be helpful to you.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. I mean, the next topic is surrounding burnout, and that's something that everyone experiences at some point. It's definitely like a trigger word for people now and all over social media and all over our media, in whatever form of way. And I think it's a good topic for us to touch on, especially with both of you being here, so that you can actually tell us what burnout is, right? It's really used as a catch-all term for a lot of different situations. And being an evening law student, we just say, oh, I have burnout, right? But everybody has different things going on in their lives, different experiences that they're dealing with from work and personal life. And then coming into school, the little micro nuances within school and within your job and your respective practices. This is for both of you. What signs distinguish burnout from deeper issues like the anxiety and depression? And how should, we're using professionals as the broad term here, how should professionals be guided to recognize the difference? And what are some, actual tips that people can use?
Esther, do you want to start?
No, go ahead, Sean, please.
Yeah, so I could talk your ear up on this, which I'll try to be succinct. So burnout is a specific experience to your point. Like we often use it as a catch-all phrase, like, oh, I'm so burnt out from work today, I just need a day off. So burnout really is the experience of the accumulation of different experiences that really wear you down and drain you on a consistent basis, to the point where like your normal or typical ways of recharging are no longer effective. So there's systemic factors that go into burnout, such as you don't have control over your workload. You don't recognize or appreciate it for your efforts. You're not in a supportive work environment. You're not given the supports that you need to be healthy in that environment. Maybe the work that you're doing is not in alignment with your values or your priorities. But like being able to distinguish burnout from other things is important. So burnout will often resemble depression, where it feels like things are harder to do. I feel drained. I don't have the energy necessary to make important changes that would be helpful. Whereas anxiety is like, I want to spend more energy to solve the problem. Like if I work harder, right? Or if I'm more focused, more charged up, trying to deal with a particular issue. Burnout and depression are the opposite end of that spectrum. It's like my motivation's gone, right? I don't feel like I'm very effective. I'm often feeling like I'm trying to control something that's outside my control, and I'm not getting anything back from this effort. So like I'm not feeling any reward from this work and this effort. And then over time, like my gas tank just starts to empty out, and I'm not refilling it. And then when somebody realizes that they're burnt out, it often requires a lot of energy to make a change, which they don't have, which people often feel stuck. It's like I feel burnt out. Taking the weekend off, I don't feel rejuvenated. I still feel burnt out. But in order to make a change to a different job or a different profession, that requires a lot of energy that by definition I don't have. It's a very challenging cycle to get out of. And then, so sort of those contributors to burnout, often like what helps burnout is awareness of those things and like the opposite of those things. So like having a supportive work environment, being able to, get supports from supervisors and colleagues, having some control over your work, whether it's what you do or the level of work, getting appreciation and acknowledgement for what effort you're putting in, having work that's connected to your values and your priorities. Like all of those things are really important in both fending off and recovering from burnout. And then a big thing in terms of preventing burnout, I see a lot of people, this is true for a lot of lawyers, is when you're in a profession when you're trying to serve other people in a helping profession, a lot of people who see themselves as helpers, oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes they're really bad at boundaries for themselves, right? Being able to say no when they could say yes, because they almost feel obligated, like, oh, I'm supposed to do this. This is my calling. This is my job. I'm supposed to serve my clients. Therefore, to tell a client no, to tell a colleague no, a friend no, a supervisor no, that feels antithetical to who they are. But without boundaries like that's a great way to be drained and like fast track to burnout. So boundaries are really important. Understandably, they can be really challenging to maintain or to set at the beginning and also maintain them. So there's like specific tips that are helpful in setting and maintaining boundaries. It often is quite challenging for someone who has that mentality of like, I'm here to serve others. How can I prioritize myself over somebody who's in need? Like I'm coming from a point of privilege. I'm not in need like my client is. Who am I to say no to my client? That's an essential tool to be able to have some boundaries and set expectations so that you can sort of protect yourself from the ongoing drain.
Yeah.
Esther, did you want to hop in? Yep.
Yeah. I want to add one more thing to what Sean has said. Sometimes it's so practical. At the beginning of the year or whenever somebody is setting their own schedule your time of rest, whether it's vacation, and prioritize it just as much as you schedule things for your client and say this cannot be changed. You take that time and say, this is my time. And it will not matter what happens with this time or who calls around this time. I'm going to shield this. And those are the boundaries that Sean is talking about, that you put it there and say, okay, this time is for me to take some rest. And it really helps. And I felt so good because this last week, I forgot my phone here at home. Two of them, left them here, found when I was in the airport, I did not have the phones. And for a minute, I was like going crazy. Then I said, come on, you're going on vacation, just keep going. And I survived. And I felt so good. I felt so good. It wasn't that good. It was a nightmare, but then I ran to do without them. But when we have that time that we have set for ourselves, it helps. And we are able to say to other people, I'm important too. We teach the people that are with us that we are important too, because there's a time that we are not going to be there. So it's okay for us to take those times. The thing is, with burnout, it doesn't matter how much you go to bed. You might go to bed early, but you might not sleep. So there has to come a time when you can just to reset and be at a place where you can rest. Because rest is the most important thing. It's not going to bed. Going to bed, you can go, but if you're not resting, you get up still even more tired. But a few things that one can do also is like, okay, doing some things that you value to do, whether it's exercises that you want to do, and schedule yourself in your own schedule. Because if you don't schedule yourself, people will schedule themselves in your schedule. I schedule myself as busy as I am, and other people do that. You schedule yourself and say, no, this is for me. Whoever else is calling me, they will take care of themselves somehow. We cannot serve other people when we ourselves don't have anything to give. We can't serve from empty. We have to be in a place where we can be refilled so we can be able to serve other people.
You can't fill other people's cups if your cup is empty.
Ain't
I
nothing.
tell you all the time. I
Mhm.
think that's so important. I think it's really cool, like hearing it from both of you, because it's something that we're always told, and sometimes, hey, I'm not the best at following it all the time. I know some people on this call are laughing because they know, but I try to do it as best as I can and schedule time for my look. See, people are sending little laughing emojis, but I think this other question, and we have a few minutes before we open it up to Q&A, so this will probably be the last question, and I'm going to open it up for both of you. And being completely honest, burnout can sometimes lead to, career change, life changes, things like that. So, what strategies have both of you found most effective in helping professionals navigate the internalized expectations and external judgment from others during periods of transition, like career changes, burnout recoveries, family shifts, things like that?
Yeah, I could say something about that, and especially among a lot of people of Kara who have achieved a particular level of whether it's education or financial health. There is such an expectation from the family and other people that that person has to be able to raise and lift up everybody else. And you have heard a lot about the black tax, TAX, black tax. You have to arrange and know for yourself how much you can do for other people and how much you cannot help everybody. And I say to them, even Jesus did not heal everybody. You have, and I'm using that as an example. And there has to be a place that sometimes we have more people in our own families who have more need, and you can just keep on going and going. You are being taken, you are helping everybody, but then you are left with nothing. You schedule yourself. And that also is, even with time, as we are working with different other people, how much time is there for me? How much money am I going to schedule that I'm going to be helping this month, that I'll be contributing? Because it's a given. I'll have to give somebody something somewhere, somewhat, because there's an expectation one way or the other. So how much am I able to give and still survive and build myself up? So those things are helpful.
Yeah, and to build off of what Esther just said, I think what I try to do is to talk with that person about sort of their reasons and motivations for like why they chose what they're doing or what keeps them doing what they're doing. So I can think of a number of examples of talking to an attorney who's been practicing for a while, and I often ask, like, oh, like what got you interested in practicing law? Like, why did you pursue law? And for some of them, it's just like it was expected, right? Maybe my father or family member was a lawyer, or I felt pressure because my sibling was going to do some graduate work, therefore I needed to as well. Some of it's like taking over the family business if it's a small practice, and then sometimes I often think about this associate that I met with who she was really stressed out, probably burnt out. She worked for an international firm, and they had a lot of a high billing hour requirement each year. And so she was number 3 across the entire firm. And so she was like, a superstar in terms of her billing and her work productivity. And I asked her if she liked it. And she's like, no, I hate it. And I was like, why do you do this work? So basically she said, I did it to prove them wrong. She had gone to a school that like wasn't top tier or something. I don't remember all the details, but basically she got messages that you're not on the track for big law, right? You can't do that. She's like, yeah, I'm going to prove you wrong. And she did. She totally proved her doubters wrong. But as a result, like she was doing the things she never wanted to do and continued to prove them wrong, even though she was suffering. It's helpful to talk to people about like why they decide to do what they do or what pressures or motivations are present, and just have a conversation about like options. To Esther's point, if someone's feeling a lot of pressure to do something or continue doing something, me giving them pressure in a different direction isn't a helpful tact, but helping them explore like what's important to them, what they value. If those pressures weren't there, what would they choose? Another example is there are times when I'm meeting with an attorney who is grieving because their parent just died. And then it's only at that point where they realize that, oh, the reason I was an attorney was because of my parent, their expectation. I felt that pressure. And now that they've passed away, I suddenly don't feel that pressure. And now I don't want to be an attorney anymore. So all of those sort of hidden pressures or reasons can be helpful to talk about and to have awareness of, just to, even if they don't make any changes, just to understand how those things affect them. And if they're choosing to continue, to be clear about the reasons why they're choosing to continue versus choosing to make a change.
Wow, thank you both so much. I mean, you really put some gems in here today, so thank you so much. Before I let you all go, or let you both go, I do want to open it up to a Q&A. So anyone in the audience, if you have any questions for both of our speakers.
I have a question. First, thank you so much. I really appreciated this conversation. My question is actually about for other people. So like, what should I do if I recognize someone is struggling with their mental health, or if they're telling me that they're struggling with their mental health? Like, what is the best way of responding to that? I think that's something that I don't know how to help.
Yeah, that's a great question. If you don't mind, Esther, we can jump in first. Shameless plug for mental health first aid. If you're not familiar with it, it's basically like medical first aid training, but it's for, you know, how a lay person can respond to somebody who is experiencing a mental health or substance use challenge or crisis. This is a very, very common question that we get. It's kind of like, yeah, I might notice somebody in the office struggling. I don't know what to do. I'm not a clinician. Like, what do you say? What do you do? And so there's lots of things that you can do. Very briefly, I would just say, one is if you suspect someone is struggling, they haven't told you, is just to approach them and let them know what you have observed. Like, don't draw conclusions, don't offer a diagnosis, but just let them know, like, I've noticed this. I just want to check in to see if you're okay. Right? Like, typically you're more positive, or I see you smiling, but I haven't seen you smiling in the last week. And I was just wondering if you're okay. I just want to check in. And so you don't have to have solutions. You don't have to have, you know, all the answers. Nobody has all the answers. But doing that sincerely and like sticking to objective things that you've noticed is a good starting point. Also doing it in a time and location that would be most comfortable for that person. So not out in the hallway or in a, you know, staff meeting. And then if someone discloses to you that they're struggling, so like a similar thing is just to be sincere and compassionate. You don't have to have answers, and you can actually just tell them that. You can thank them for sharing that vulnerability with you. And you could say, like, I wish I had something to offer. Like, I don't know what to say, but, you know, thank you for sharing that with me. And I'm happy to try to, you know, look for something that would be helpful if that's of interest to you. And then you can always reach out to people around you, colleagues, organizations like mine, you know, lots of other things. The thing I want to get across is you don't have to be a trained clinician to intervene. You can just be like a compassionate human being and be vulnerable about that. Like, I don't have all the answers, just concerned. And I want to let you know that I see you and I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's important, and because sometimes we see things even with our relatives, and just like Dr. Harry is saying, if you approach it in a way that somebody understands that you care, and sometimes you might find that they are willing, but they don't know where to start to get the help that they need. And people sometimes will say, I want help, but I don't know how to do this. There are people who have called me on behalf of their family members, and they will say, my mom is here, or my sister is here, and she has never seen a therapist before, but she's here with me, and she wants to start seeing you. Can we come together? And I'll say, yeah, you can come together if you want. That is fine. I'm open for that. And you can say to that, I can say to that person, and they will say, yeah, my mom is here and she can talk. My mom is, I was asked, okay, this is Miss Jennifer or whatever, and say, okay, Miss Jennifer, they are saying that you want to talk, your daughter just talked with me. Is it okay for me to talk with you? Now I have to look for permission from the person, whether it's okay for me to talk to them in front of their daughter, because you don't, or their son, because you don't want somebody dragged to you when they don't want to be seen. But when somebody knows that you can even accompany them, there are some friends that could be even open to say, okay, it's so hard for me to go and knock on that door, but go with me, come with me. And all it will take sometimes is the first session. And after that, or just for you to sit in the waiting room and wait for them. And then after that, they will be able to come on their own.
The other thing I'll add is 988, the crisis line. You can call that anytime, whether it's with that person who needs help or for yourself and you don't know what to do. You can call and say, like, this is the situation. I'm concerned about someone. I don't know what to do or what resources are available. And you can get that information and support directly.
Thank you both. Does anyone else have any questions?
Is it possible, even for us who are on this platform, if we take it upon ourselves as helpers and keep our eyes open, if we find somebody else struggling, to be able to support them one way or the other?
Absolutely. I think that's a great call to action. And I do want to open it up to you now to promote anything that you have going on with your business, anything that you're doing in the community with your community, and just share with our audience here today. So for either of you, Sean and Esther.
I'll just make a plug for our organization's website, www.lclma.org. That stands for Lawyers Concerned for Lawyers, Massachusetts.org. We have lots of resources on there in terms of like pre-recorded or recorded presentations on a variety of topics related to mental health and burnout and all sorts of different things. My colleague and I are mental health first aid trainers, and so we run that training every 3 or 4 months. And
How long is the training?
So it's a certification training, so it's a full day. It's like 8 hours total or 7.5 hours. So it is a big commitment.
Where is the training held?
We do them remotely.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Esther, anything on your end?
Yeah, I'm available. The name of our agency is Behavioral Healthcare Pathways, and the phone number is area code 860-205-2157, and we'll be able to help anybody that could need help if we have openings, and that is in Connecticut and in Massachusetts. And we are happy to help and support our families as needed.
Thank you both so much. I mean, can we give them a virtual round of applause? Like, great having you here. We really appreciate, the wisdom that you spread upon us, and just thank you for everything. I would like to share something with you all. Give me 1 second. So, can we all see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So once again, thank you all for being here tonight and this evening. This was a great webinar experience. The Just Us movement has a ton of upcoming events that I would love to plug for today. So for the summer of 2025, today we had our mental health webinar. July 25th, we'll have our Know Your Rights webinar, which will be discussing law enforcement, immigration encounters. We've secured some pretty cool panelists for that one, so make sure to tune in. And then on July 12th, we're having our first Nourish the Neighborhood hot meal food drive. So we're looking for volunteers for that event as well. So if you're open to coming out and serving some food to the community, please do so. I'll post the link in the chat right after this. And then in August, we have a back to school drive, donating school supplies to local schools. We'll have a number of teachers that have a Amazon link to where will be able to donate directly to the school and to the students. And then lastly, September 18th, we have another Know Your Rights webinar. This one will be focused on the workplace rights and legal protections, addressing discrimination, harassment, and accommodation. So thank you once again for everyone being here today. We really appreciate everyone coming out. The Just Us movement could not be what it is today without all of you and the people behind the scenes doing the great work. Thank you to my team. Once again, Dr. Healy, Miss Wangi, thank you for being here today. And everyone, have a great rest of your evening. Khadijah, do you have anything to close us out with?
Very, very quickly before everyone leaves, I would love it if everyone could just turn their camera on so I could take a very quick photo just so that way we can commemorate this experience. So very quickly, it shouldn't take too long for me to get a quick screenshot for those of you who would like to participate, of course. Oh, thank you guys so much. Getting the
All
screen.
right.
Amazing. Thank you all. Have a great rest of
All
your
right.
day.
Have a great evening. Bye.
Take care, everyone.